Hey everyone, it's Anthony Ellen Ramos. All right, earlier this year, we joined the Banned Books Week Coalition to ensure that LGBTQ authors and voices are heard despite the increased censorship efforts happening all over the country. This week, it is Banned Books Week, and today I'm very excited to be chatting with author Crystal Frasier about her book, Cheer Up, Love and Pompoms, which was also this year's GLAAD Media Award winner for Outstanding Original Graphic Novel. Very exciting. Crystal, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on.
And I should also say that the book was illustrated by Val Weiss. It's such a great one, so congrats. But I think that's a great place to get started. Why don't you read, I know it is a graphic novel, more like a comic book a little bit, but read a little bit for us to kind of set it up.
Yeah, so one of the things I got to do with this book is there are lots of small, messy realities in being transgender, and I actually got to write some of them into this experience of a teenage girl transitioning. So, let's see. I earmarked a couple of them. I know I shouldn't apologize all the time. I just feel like I have to apologize for being around. Me transitioning put so many people out. My mom, my dad, the school, and even the people who are nice get so much angrier when I get upset than they did before. Like like they're all just waiting for proof that I'm one of the bad ones. And no matter what I do, everyone is always looking at me. I'm always the center of attention. And they think if I screw up or freak out, it's because I'm a trans girl, never because I'm just not perfect.
I think that's great. That sets it up nicely. And I think, you mentioned a little bit about what this story is, but for anyone, that is going to see this and wants to check it out, kind of set up this story because it was one that really did resonate with us. And we were really excited that a lot of people found it and, really connected with it.
Well, Cheer Up is a story about two girls who used to be friends and had a falling out, and they meet back up when they join the same cheerleading team, and then they fall in love. And it stands out a little bit more because the main character, BB, is a trans girl. She's just transitioned in the last year. The cheerleading team are basically the only people at school who really stood by her, and they had kind of impure motives. They thought like reaching out and supporting the trans girl, the first trans girl at their school that they knew of, was going to make them look good and feel good and look good on college applications. And over time they realize, oh, we were kind of like, we did the right thing but for crappy reasons, and we've made her feel bad, and they start to be real friends instead of just being there as allies on the tin. And through,
Yeah.
through the course of this, they invite BB's old friend Annie to join the cheerleading team, and Annie is a complete, like, social, antisocial sort of anarchist type who would never join the cheerleading team in a million years, but she needs something that looks good on her college transcript, or her college applications. And so BB helps her get on the team, and they sort of rekindle that friendship they lost the year before because Annie thinks that BB went mainstream because she joined the cheerleaders, not because she transitioned. And it's just this story of, young queer kids being imperfect and trying their best and doing better for having met each other.
No, I love that. And I think what we're talking about here is this uptick in censorship. So these
Yeah.
books and important stories that LGBTQ youth want to read and are potentially not having access to. I think for you, what would it have meant to have had a book like the one that you put out into the world available when you were growing up and a little bit younger?
I mean, it would have meant the world. I transitioned about 17, mostly not because I had any good examples, but because I was very stubborn. And when I transitioned, I had a really rough time of it because there weren't a lot of examples to follow. There weren't role models to look up to. There wasn't any idea of who I should be besides these terrible stereotypes you saw on television and movies at the time. and having a book where, you know, a trans girl kind of gets to be imperfect and have different eclectic personality types, and where her friendships weren't perfect but people were trying, and, you know, showing all the messy realities of being trans. It would have made me feel so much better about, you know, who I was and how I was doing, because I was raised to be ashamed of who and what I was. And having a book where who and what I was is fine, it's just part of the messy bits of being human, would have meant so much to me. Val and I actually sat down in the early planning stages and thought, what book did we need when we were in school?
And that's what we're here to talk about. And I think, you know, hearing you talk about that, and then we see, you know, looking over the past year, how there's uptick in censorship that really targets LGBTQ children's books, YA books. And I think there's this even greater push for legislators to get these books banned from schools, libraries. What is it like for you to see that happening and to know that kids who really are craving these stories may not be able to have access to them?
I mean, it hurts. Like I said, I know firsthand what it's like to need this kind
Mhm.
of affirmation and not have it, and I know what kind of damage it can do to you long term. And I mean, when I was younger and had a little more faith in humanity, I thought, well, these books just don't exist yet because, you know, people don't understand and the resources haven't existed. And now that I'm older and I'm seeing this active conservative backlash against the LGBTQ community, and, you know, the active banning and this active conflation of being queer with being sexual, and grooming children for sexual lifestyles, is just so infuriating. And well, I'm glad that Cheer Up hasn't been on any of those banned lists yet, but I think that's almost entirely because it's still fairly new. We've only been out for a year now.
And I think, you know, the bigger picture, and more than 90, you know, anti-LGBTQ school policy bills have been introduced. It's very clear
Mhm.
that schools and libraries are the new battleground for anti-LGBTQ activists. What is the reason for that, would you say?
I mean, I think it's education's always been a big battleground. I mean, look at the civil rights battles and integration efforts in the 1960s and 70s, and it's always been it's always been a place where a conservative majority, or even a conservative minority, feels like they're supposed to impose their values on the next generation rather than letting the generation grow into who they are inside. It's it's about a fundamental social control. And I think they see their current demographic aging and dying off, and they feel like they need to impose a certain amount of brainwashing on children in the next generation to try and get a new load of voters to maintain these very hurtful social standards.
And, you know, on the flip side, there are people that have found your book. There are people that have connected with it. What has been the response, whether it be people finding you on social media or just telling you when they see you in person? What has been, you know, the reaction to Cheer Up? Because I think, you know, it has connected with a lot of people, and I hope that it continues to do so.
Yeah, it's been overwhelmingly positive, and it's I mean, I've been writing for 20 years, give or take, and I still don't know how to take compliments. So I always feel incredibly shy and just mortified when people come up to me and tell me they like my writing, because there's that part of me that's like, oh no, no, I have no real insights. I'm not important. I just said the obvious stuff. um, but yeah, I mean, it's good to know that I've helped people, and that the book basically is doing what we really wanted it to do. Val and I wanted a book that, showcases the realities of being trans and being queer youth, and, made those kids feel seen and made them feel like there's hope and there's love and things get better.
And you talk
So
about receiving compliments. What was it like when you found out that the GLAAD Media Awards, you were the winner this year? I mean, that must have been pretty exciting.
that was a little overwhelming. I didn't think we really had a chance. Not because Val's art isn't amazing, because I mean Val is just phenomenal. But I just, like I said, I never really think I've written anything special. I just think, I've sort of written something nice, and I'm glad people enjoy it. But the idea that it would win awards was kind of overwhelming.
Well, listen, you are special. The book is special, so don't forget that. But I think as we've been talking to you, we've talked to other LGBTQ authors. How would you say anyone that obviously sees what's happening when it comes to censorship and really trying to limit kids' rights? How can we go out and support LGBTQ authors and readers right now?
I mean, the most important thing is to find the practical differences you can make, on ground and in person, whether that's, buying copies of LGBTQ books and making them available for, the kids in your family, or a little local library, or if it's something a little bigger, like running for your local school board to help protect, kids' access to this important information, or joining local library committees so you can, again, make sure these book bans don't steamroll your local community. Uh, a lot of it is just, it can feel so overwhelming when you see it's on the big national news, but a lot of big change happens at a local level. I feel I have huge rants about how we've failed to teach queer history in this country, and part of what we've forgotten is that all through the 70s and 80s there were huge grassroots campaigns to help educate people on, queer issues, queer rights, to help people understand that the queer community wasn't this dangerous predator. And now that that myth is coming back up, I feel like we don't know how to counter it the way we did back then.
Completely. And I mean, on the flip side, on some of the more positive stuff, have you been able to kind of find some other LGBTQ inclusive books, whether they be for kids or young readers, or even for adults, that you have really connected with recently or you're a fan of?
Oh yeah. I'm very late to the party, but I found Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children series. I wanted to hold it up, but I lent it to a friend and haven't gotten it back. But it is aggressively queer. It is a very queer and trans inclusive counterpoint if you like, private schools about magical children. So I would strongly recommend that. One of the main protagonists is a young trans man who is just a complete delight and kind of serves as the through line throughout the series, because each book is about different kids at the school. And one of my personal favorites from the last couple of years is Girl Haven, which I don't know if you've talked to Lila Sturges yet on the show, but
Not yet, not
it
yet.
is an amazing portal fantasy young adult graphic novel, kind of in the vein of the Narnia books or the Oz books, except it's about a little trans girl kind of coming to terms with who she is while exploring this portal, this magical realm her mother created.
Those both sound incredible.
Yeah.
Listen, Crystal, I want to thank you so much for stopping by today and for sharing and really helping us, shed a spotlight on what is happening and really hopefully pushing back as we sit here during Banned Books Week. But how can people find you? How can people find your book? If they want to know more about you, where can they? I know you said you're a little shy, but if people want to know more, where can they go?
Well, you can find me most easily over on Twitter. I'm at Amazon Chic. That's CHIQUE. And you can find my book over at the Oni Press website. You can also find it on any of the major book retailers. I would recommend going to your friendly local bookstore, or your friendly comic shop, and ordering it through them. It's the last couple years have been really hard on small businesses, so anything you could do to help out would be appreciated.
No, that's great words. All right, well, Crystal, thank you so much. Hang in there, and I can't wait to see what the next book is. And congrats again on your GLAAD Media Award. And we will hopefully see you soon.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.